Norway has just made the largest defense investment in its modern history. In early September 2025, Oslo signed a £10 billion, around $13.5 billion deal with the United Kingdom for at least 5 Type 26 frigates, marking a dramatic shift in the Royal Norwegian Navy's capabilities. At first glance, this is just another major procurement within NATO, but a closer look reveals that it is a decisive move aimed at one of the most pressing strategic challenges of our time: countering Russia's submarine fleet in the North Atlantic. Before we dive deeper into this development, I would like to take a moment to thank our community. If you find value in these kinds of in-depth defense analyses, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can bring thoughtful perspectives on global military affairs to more people. Norway's geography explains everything. This is a small country of 5.5 million people, but it sits on the front line of NATO's northern flank. Across the Barents Sea lies the Russian Kola Peninsula, home to the Northern Fleet. From there, nuclear-powered submarines, both the new Yasen-class attack boats and the Beret-class ballistic missile subs, regularly sortie into the Barents and North Atlantic. The potential of these subs to slip undetected into the wider ocean poses a serious threat to NATO's sea lines of communication, particularly across the Greenland-Iceland-GIUK Gap. For decades, NATO's strategy has been built around denying Russia access to this corridor. Norway is not just a bystander, it is the gatekeeper. Until now, the backbone of Norway's navy has been the Fridtjof Nansen-class frigates, commissioned between 2006 and 2011. These were solid multi-purpose vessels for their time, armed with the Aegis combat system and capable of operating with NATO fleets. But they were relatively small, about 5,300 tons, and increasingly unsuited for the advanced anti-submarine warfare tasks required today. To make matters worse, one of the 5 frigates, K&M Helge Ingstad, was lost in a collision in 2018, reducing the force to only 4 ships. For a navy already stretched thin, this was a strategic blow. The search for replacements began years ago. Various contenders were considered: Germany's Miko A200, Japan's Megami class, and Dutch Sigma designs. But in the end, Oslo selected the Type 26, designed by BAE Systems and already chosen by the UK, Canada, and Australia. Why? Because the Type 26 is arguably the world's most advanced dedicated ASW frigate. The design displaces about 8,000 tons, giving it the endurance and seakeeping needed for long patrols in the harsh North Atlantic. Its propulsion system is optimized for quiet running, crucial when hunting submarines. It will carry the Captus 4-towed sonar array, one of the most sophisticated in service, and will operate helicopters like the MH-60R, equipped with dipping sonar and torpedoes. Armament will include the Sea Scepter surface-to-air missile system, vertical launch cells for Asrock, or Tomahawk-class cruise missiles, and modern naval guns. All of this makes it a formidable tool for the specific mission that Norway most urgently requires: tracking Russian submarines leaving the Arctic. But the choice was not only technical. Politically, this deal deepens the already strong ties between London and Oslo. The Royal Navy will operate the same class of ship, opening the door to joint training, logistics cooperation, and even shared crews if needed. Economically, the project supports around 4,000 jobs in British shipyards, particularly in Glasgow. Strategically, it anchors the UK and Norway together as NATO's northern shield. For NATO, this is more than one country buying ships. It plugs a crucial gap in the alliance's order of battle. American forces remain dominant, but Washington increasingly expects European allies to shoulder more responsibility. Britain and Norway working together on ASW frigates means that the burden of securing the GIUK Gap will not fall solely on U.S. destroyers and submarines. It sends a clear message to Moscow: the North Atlantic will not be uncontested. There is also an interesting comparison to make with Australia's Hunter class, which is also based on the Type 26 design. Canberra's program has been plagued by cost overruns, with each frigate projected at over 5 billion Australian dollars, making them some of the most expensive warships in history. Norway, by contrast, seems to be getting a much better deal at roughly half that price per unit. That raises questions about project management and defense industrial policy. Why does one ally pay so much more for essentially the same platform? This kind of comparison is not just trivia. It reveals how different nations approach procurement, how much domestic industry is prioritized, and how strategic urgency shapes spending. Of course, challenges remain. Building advanced warships always risks delays and cost growth. Integration of systems and ensuring interoperability with NATO fleets will be complex. Domestically, there will be debates in Norway over whether such vast sums are justified, especially for a small navy. Critics will argue that 5 ships cannot by themselves change the balance of power against Russia's northern fleet. Supporters will counter that these frigates are not intended to fight alone, but as part of a networked alliance strategy. One must also consider the human dimension. As Norway militarizes its northern regions and invests in new infrastructure to support defense, the indigenous Sami population is feeling the pressure. Reindeer herding and traditional livelihoods are being disrupted by new roads, railways, and military facilities. This is not the main story of the Type 26, but it is a reminder that even the most high-tech defense programs have social consequences. Balancing national security with the rights of local communities is a challenge every democratic country must face. Taken together, the Type 26 deal represents a decisive strategic bet. Norway is saying that it will not be a passive ally relying on others. Instead, it is willing to commit serious resources to ensure that NATO's northern flank remains secure. This is not just about protecting its own waters, but about safeguarding transatlantic trade, energy routes, and the credibility of NATO itself. In the great strategic contest of the 21st century, between Western democracies and revisionist powers like Russia, such commitments matter. This brings us back to the broader question: will these ships truly shift the balance against Russia's submarines? Perhaps not by themselves, but combined with British, American, and other NATO assets, they could make the GIUK Gap a lethal gauntlet for any submarine attempting to break out. That in itself is deterrence. And in the end, deterrence is about convincing your adversary that the cost of aggression is too high. This channel thrives thanks to your support. If you believe in thoughtful defense analysis that goes beyond the headlines, please consider liking, commenting, or even supporting us through the links below. Every gesture helps us keep this work independent, serious, and focused on the big picture.